Hey everybody. So a question came up about creating kind of a translucency effect. It's almost transparent for a fish fin. So I created just a very simple fish, and I'm thinking, this might be more of a refractive map, and just because I can see through it. Anyhow, let's look at this. So I'm going to use Zbrush for this. You could use Substance, but I've got everything in here. So I'm going to create a couple different maps for this. So let me just clean up this file here just very quickly. I'm just going to delete a few things. And just some of the making of stuff here. There we go. And I'm going to go to the higher level. Maybe turn on my... Oh, I don't have Geometry HD on. I thought I did. Okay, that's okay. And I'm just going to go and just paint a very quick color on this. So let me just start by filling this in. And I'm going to go, let me see, is this the best? Yeah, maybe this one's a bit better. And let me see, maybe kind of a goldfish type of thing. So I'm going to use my cavity maps. So auto masking, cavity, and we're going to use my standard brush, sculpting's off, RGB, and again just make sure cavity mask is on. It's per brush, so cool. And I'm just going to do a bit of a once over here, just get all this stuff going on. It's a little bit too bright, maybe, but that's okay. I'm going to do a couple things. Okay, I'm going to do a bit of a smooth. Before I do, let me just make sure my smooth is off for the sculpting, so I'm only smoothing the color. And I'm going to do a couple layers of this, so I'm just kind of blurring things out first. And again, this is a little bit too yellow, so I'm going to go in and do it a bit darker. Again, I was trying to get the initial coloring in first. Cool. Before I smooth it out, I'm going to go and just do a little bit of a darker color into the creases. So I'm going to reverse my cavity mask. And again, I'm just going to do a couple layers of this. So I'm going to pause while I just paint, just so you don't have to watch me paint, and then I'll come back. Okay, so I've got my color. Is it done? I don't know. I'm not 100% happy with it because I lost some of my Geometry HD detail with the scales, but it's okay. It's okay. I think it'll be okay once it's rendered. There's a couple missing scales and stuff. I could add those back in later, but this is just for demo purposes. So next thing I want to do is generate a couple maps. So normally I would go into Substance Painter for this, but you can do this in Zbrush, and I'm pretty sure I did do this at some point. Maybe this was last year. I might have done this, but but it's different, right? So when you're using ZBrush, we don't have the layers, like the color management, like a Photoshop or a Substance Painter. So what we need to do is duplicate our model. So you want to be happy with everything. So it should be done by this point, once you get into this stage. And we're just going to be separating things out. So I've got a diffuse map here. So I'm going to just duplicate this out here. So the next thing I want to do is just create a black and white map. So, you know, I mentioned, you know, this could be a little bit more transparent. So I'll create like an opacity map. So I could just color everything black, right? So I could go in and fill that object black. Now, is it filled? That's a good question. It doesn't look filled. Maybe because I have my cavity mask on. Let me do that again. There we go. Right. So that's black. Excuse me. Let me just do one more fill, just to be on the safe side. Okay, there we go. That's black. And then we can go in and paint the areas that are going to be more transparent, right? So, and these areas are going to be where the refraction is. So we're going to see through these areas more than the areas that are black, right? So I'm just going to go in and paint this in. Now, is it going to be like glass? No, we're going to probably go in and tweak it so that, you know, it's going to be very light will pass through it, but we're not going to clearly see what's on the other side, unless that's what you're going for. So I'm just going to go in and now, do I have? Oh, of course. Do I have symmetry on? I think so. Yeah, good stuff. Now these guys are going to be a little bit transparent as well, so I don't want them to be perfectly opaque, so I'm going to go back over them once I've done this part. Cool. Now what I'm going to do is just go through this and maybe go at a slightly less transparent value for these guys here. And then I'll soften them up and blend them together. And you can do this for, you know, subsurface scattering. You could do it for roughness, which I think I'm going to do this for roughness as well. And this is really rough, so, you know, it's not going to be the best, but, you know, you take your time and you can get it exactly how you want it, probably. Also, my UVs are probably not the best, but they're good enough, I think, for this. Cool. So don't forget, if you hit C, you can sample a color, so you don't have to go back over to the color wheel, and I'm just going to make sure my smoothing's on just RGB, and I'm just going to smooth this up and blend it all together. Maybe like a maximum smooth. I didn't really do the backside there. I should probably do that. You know, I want to be consistent, I guess, but I'm just going to smooth this over. Cool. You know, I could maybe go in and even put in a little bit of transparency around the lips. Maybe. I don't know. Probably not. I probably don't want that, but maybe. Now, this is not subsurface scattering, right? So we're going to be kind of playing around with the transparency of the object. Not to be confused. All right, so let's say, you know, this is kind of what I want. You know, it's not going to be the best in through here. It might be, we could probably go and make it a little bit more solid, perhaps. And then the smaller fins, I'll just leave it like that. Okay. Now I might want to do a diffuse or roughness as well since I'm at it. So I'm just going to duplicate this one more time. I should probably label those layers also, but this one is going to be roughness. So I'm going to fill the object. Oh, let's go 100%. That's why. Fill the object. There we go. And let's see here. Maybe that's not 100%. Yeah, I feel like this one's just not quite. I'm just going to go over some of this with just 100% black here. Yeah, it's just not 100% black in some of this part. So I'm just going to make sure it's fairly black. So I only want the fins to be partly refractive. Okay, I'm going to go with that. And as I was saying, I want to do a bit of a roughness. So closer to black would be shinier. So actually I'm going to fill this at maybe a little bit more of a gray color. So fill object. And then I'll paint the blacker areas. So the blacker areas are going to be shinier. Right? Now, fish really isn't shinier underwater because he's in the water, but you know, if light were to hit him or something like that, we're going to do this anyway, just to show you. So let's go into cavity mask, and I just want the higher bits to be a little bit more specular. And the stuff that's more recessed would be less specular. Yeah, something like that. And I can go more specular around the mouth, maybe. So again, this is going to be the shinier bits. And you know, if you don't know what it's going to look like, just do a test. Right? Test it out, see how it goes. So I'm going to have it a bit shinier on the top, I think, and less shiny on the bottom. We can always dial this down or up if it's too much or too little. I'm going to go something like this. Okay, so I got my three maps. I'm going to want to do a displacement. So I'll start with the color first, and then I'll do these guys after. I only have the one tile, so I'm not using UDIMs. So let me go into my... But if you were to use UDIMs, use your export settings that we've talked about in the past. So multi-map exporter. So I'm going to do a bunch of things. Normal, I'll do a displacement. I'll also do texture from polypaint. And we'll just make sure my export settings are set properly. So that looks good. That looks good. 4K, I think that should be okay for this. It's just one tile, but you know, there's not a ton of detail on there. Alright, so I'm going to just pause while I export out the maps. Alright, so it's just exporting out the maps now, so I'll just pause it while it's doing this. Alright, so I've extracted out the maps. Now I feel like I just paused over some of that stuff, but once you've got your main map extracted, all you need to do is extract the texture as for the other one. So it should only take a few seconds to do that, right? So, and I'm just extracting only the texture from polypaint because I've already got the displacement, right? I've already got the normal map. I have my color, and then I've got my refraction and roughness. Now, they're not going to come in labeled like this. I just relabeled them, and unfortunately it was paused, I think, when I just did that, unless I'm losing my mind, which is possible. You could go in and label, you know, your normal map as well. And again, this is set up as UDUMs. I only have the one tile though, but whoops. I don't know what I just did there, but it should be okay. And then displacement, height, just displacement is fine. All right, so let's go over to Maya, and let's set up our stuff. All right. So I'll start by bringing in a, let's just make sure my Redshift is here, bring in a dome light. Start up an IPR. There we go. And on that dome light, I'm just going to throw an HDRI image. Now, we should have some kind of underwater image or something like that, but for now I'll use maybe this one. And I'll just turn off the, turn it off. Something that'll kind of show the volume of the object. Something like this is probably okay. Cool. Next thing I'm going to do, now it's pretty dense, so I wouldn't normally have something like this dense, but again, it's just for this. Then what we're going to do is go into our Redshift node. Let me delete history on this first. Edit. It's interesting. My menus are getting cut off. Oh, weird. Modify. Sorry, edit. Delete my type history. There we go. And we're going to go down to Redshift. We're going to enable tessellation, so it'll be smoother at render time. We're going to enable displacement. We're going to add in a Redshift material. And we're going to start making our connections. So I'll start with the displacement. I always like starting here just to make sure it works. So let me grab my file. Perfect, we're done. Just kidding. As usual. Now I will have to go in and change something. Maybe I should do that first. Alright, let me just go back there. So we're using an EXR, so it should go -1 to 1. And let's go get that file. Cool. Right, so there's all the scales and the details and everything. Alright, so the next thing I want to do is get the color. So let's go grab that. Oh, let's see, it's not the... There you are. There it is. And next thing I want to do is throw on the roughness. So let's throw on the roughness here. It's a little bit more customized. Grab a file texture. Right, and then we can always dial it down if it's too much. So I am going to do that. So we can dial it down just by sliding the alpha offset just a tiny little bit. Right. Now if it's too even, I could go back in and just kind of tweak it a little bit. Oh my gosh. It's like a thunderstorm out there. I better power down soon. Now the last thing I want to do is I want to go in and do the this part here. So let's see. I'm going to go into my refraction. So reflection, refraction, and we're going to load this in. Now, why does that look different than before? Maybe this is right. So let's load that file in. I think it's just the same as before, it's just my imagination. So refraction, and we just have to turn it on, right? So I'm turning on the input here. So I can see it's affecting it. So let me just dial it all the way up, right? So now wherever it's white, it's opaque, so obviously I could do a better job with this map. But what I want to do is I want to control the roughness. So to do this, I'm going to have to unlink from the reflection, and then we're going to control the roughness here, and that's going to give it less of that transparent feel, more of a feeling of not necessarily frosted glass, but there's like stuff in there, like a saline gel bag or something like that. Now, you know, if that's too much, then we just dial down the weight of it a bit, right? So we're seeing a little bit of, now I have some spots. I could have put spots as part of that map too, right? Now the cool thing, if I were to kind of zoom out, if I were to, let me just duplicate this guy out and put a copy back there. Right, so we are going to be able to see through that now. Now, as I dial this down, you can kind of see the effects of this, right? So now this is too shiny, right? Maybe if it's out of water, maybe it'd be like that, but you're kind of playing around with this value so that you can kind of see through it, but you're not seeing 100% through it, right? And that's looking pretty good. Right, so where it's transparent. So, you know, I would go back into Zbrush now and fix up my maps a bit. But essentially that's how you would go about doing that. Cool. I'm going to stop the video right there. Hopefully this was helpful. Okay, cheers. Bye.